Hi, it's Dr. Z. In this video, I will review social cognition. By the end of this video, you'll be able to explain the concepts of person perception, attribution theory, and cognitive dissonance. Please feel free to pause the video at any time to take notes. Have you been influenced to do something because you felt pressured by others? If you answered yes, it supports the belief that a person's behavior is influenced by who else is present in a certain situation and the role of social groups. Social psychology is the scientific study of how people think about, influence, and relate to other people. Social psychologists are interested in how the presence of others, whether real or imagined, impacts how a person behaves and reacts. Specifically, social psychology explores both the intrapersonal and interpersonal levels of social interaction. Intrapersonal occurs within the individual and can impact emotions, attitudes, the self, and social cognition. On the other hand, interpersonal occur within groups and can impact helping behaviors, prejudice, discrimination, and group processes. This video will focus on the intrapersonal level with social cognition. Recall that cognition means thoughts, and social is referring to interactions with others. When we put that together, social cognition refers to how we interpret and remember information about ourselves and others. More specifically, social cognition uses cognitive processes to form judgments of ourselves and others. There are three specific concepts we will focus on. Person perception is a fancy term for impression management. Our perceptions, that is, beliefs of or feelings for a person, are based on first impressions. These first learnings are powerful. In the film The Perfect Date, Brooks is Celia's date to a dance that she's being forced to attend by her parents. In this photo, Celia is setting her first impression as a brash, self-assured young woman who doesn't care about social media and doesn't want to attend typical high school events. This first impression leads to miscommunication between the two of them later in the film. In social psychology, the primacy effect refers to this first impression. Once an impression is formed about a person, all later information is filtered through this first lens. And sometimes it is very difficult to change first impressions. When I asked students on the last day of this course to share their first impressions of me, Dr. Z, most of the feedback is positive. However, one student's feedback has always stood out for me. This student explained that I scared him on the first day. He went on to explain that he was excited about my enthusiasm and energy for the course, but he was afraid that I would not sustain it for the entire semester, and I would let him down. Fortunately, I maintained my high enthusiasm for psychology all semester long, and he shared he was not disappointed. As a result, the concept of person perception leads to intentional steps to influence others' opinions of us. On the first day of this course, I intentionally present myself and this Psych 101 course in a way that leads to a good first impression, because I recognize the power of person perception and the primacy effect. Likewise, this primacy effect goes both ways, my friends. Your first impression as a student is your first assignment. If you do amazingly well, that is the lens through which the professor will see you through for the rest of the semester, good or bad. So what happens if you miss a question on the syllabus and orientation quiz, or you procrastinate on the first assignment, or perhaps you submit a poor quality assignment, application paper, well, you set the tone for the semester with that instructor. So I encourage you to use psychology to your advantage and set a good first impression at all times. As a society, we have a strong desire to explain why things happen. Attribution theory is one way to explain something by indicating the source of the cause. Behavior is a product of both the situation and of the person. So there are two types of attribution. Situational attribution indicates that there's an external cause to someone's behavior. In other words, the source of the behavior is because of the situation or the environment, not the person. In the movie Superbad, Seth and Evan take a cooking class in high school. If Evan burned the cookies and made a situational attribution for his behavior, he would say something like, I burned the cookies because this oven is old. Alternatively, there is a dispositional attribution. The root word of dispositional is disposition, which is just a fancy way of referring to someone's personality. In other words, a dispositional attribution indicates there's an internal cause for what is happening, and that cause is an individual's decisions and personality. Now, if Seth burned the cookies and made a dispositional attribution for his behavior, he would say something like, I burned the cookies because I'm awful at baking. He is blaming himself instead of the oven for burning the cookies. Unfortunately, these two attributions can contribute to errors and biases. Let's discuss these three potential errors in attribution. The first error is called self-serving bias. Here you will explain your successes using dispositional attribution, or that your personality and who you are the main reason for your success. On the other hand, you'll explain your failures using situational attribution, or that the situation was the main reason of your failure. Self-serving bias arises often in sports. We tend to believe that our team wins because it's just better than the other team, but that when they lose, well, they lose for reasons that the team cannot control. The second error is called the actor-observer effect. As the actor, you use situational attribution to explain your behavior. However, if you're the observer of someone else's exact same behavior, you use dispositional attribution to explain their behavior instead. In the film Little Miss Sunshine, Olive's family is on a road trip to get her to a beauty pageant. Amid all the chaos of this trip, her parents accidentally leave Olive behind at a rest stop, as shown in this photo. If Olive's mother was the actor in this scenario, she might say something like, well, I left Olive behind because I'm just so overwhelmed with everything, which is a situational attribution. At the same time, though, Olive's mom might use a dispositional attribution if she's the observer in the situation and say something like, well, Dad left Olive behind because he's careless and forgetful. Another common example I see of the actor-observer effect involves when a student receives a DUI or a driving under the influence citation. When it happens to them, the student will blame the situation as I was at a party or the cop was looking for people to cite as the reason for receiving a citation. So a situational attribution. However, when it's someone else receiving the DUI, they will explain that that student's behavior was stupid or reckless or they should have known better to drink and drive. Continuing our discussion of errors in attribution, The third error is called fundamental attribution error. Fundamental means of central importance. In this case, it is the most serious of attribution errors. Fundamental attribution error is when you give more attention to dispositional attribution than is appropriate for the situation. Basically, my friends, we assume the worst of someone instead of considering the situation first. For example, when a little kid learns to pour milk on their own, the odds are pretty high that they will spill the milk on accident. However, when a parent or caregiver responds to the spilled milk with an overreaction to the situation, says something like, "Well, you're so stupid you can't pour milk," this is a fundamental attribution error. In essence, we tend to overemphasize internal factors like one's personality to explain one's behavior, and to underestimate the power of the situation on the behavior of others. Now, it is important to highlight that individualistic cultures commit the fundamental attribution error more often than in collectivistic cultures. Individualistic cultures like Western countries like the US and England tend to be achievement-oriented, focus on autonomy, and are centered on the individual. Alternatively, collectivistic cultures, like in East Asian and Latin American cultures, they tend to be relationship-oriented, focus on group harmony, and are centered on the group. It is the focus on the individual that most likely contributes to this fundamental attribution error. Have you ever known someone who wanted to quit smoking but struggled to do so? They knew that smoking was not healthy for them, but they still enjoyed the physical and psychological benefits of smoking. Well, my friends, this struggle is referred to as cognitive dissonance, which was coined by the psychologist Leon Festinger. The word dissonance means a lack of agreement. In this case, an individual's experience psychological discomfort when their beliefs are incongruent or lack agreement with their sense of self. In essence, one's behavior, attitudes, and beliefs are impacted when there's a perceived threat to their self-esteem and/or self-image. In the film Easy A, Olive is a clean-cut high school student who tells a white lie about losing her virginity to protect a friend. The unfortunate result is that classmates now view her as a tramp, which makes her feel horrible about herself, as shown in this photo. When experiencing such incongruent beliefs, an individual then becomes motivated to reduce this discomfort by aligning those beliefs and behaviors. As such, in the film, Olive decides to embrace the label of school tramp and plays into the role, with unforeseen consequences. In summary, social psychology studies how the presence of others, whether real or imagined, impacts how a person behaves and reacts. At the intrapersonal level, social cognition refers to how we interpret and remember information about ourselves and others. Social cognition uses cognitive processes to form judgments of ourselves and others, which plays a role in our daily lives.